2 children. And so what's the burden if she misses an important meeting during that time, which we just simply don't schedule during that time. It's not a hard solution. So the headlines are grim. The women are suggesting they're experiencing all those stressors and there is an impact. Men have been promoted much more likely during COVID-19, 3 times more likely than women have. This is in the corporate sector during the pandemic. 1 in 4 women, this is an incredibly high percentage, and I'll show you exactly why in the following slides. 1 in 4 women are considering leaving the workforce or downshifting because of this pandemic and all that's fallen to us, and that even is in the academic world. Men have been much more productive with research and papers getting accepted and success in the research and tenure world. So this is before COVID-19, and I just want you to look at the bottom 2 slices, the orange and the orange striped. Women were already not doing great. And if you are a woman of color in the corporate world, you can see that the number shrinks to 3% who make it into the C-suite. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies today, not one Fortune 500 company except Gap Inc. across the bay, who has a Southeast Asian CEO, female CEO, not one Black female CEO right now in the Fortune 500, which is just absolutely unconscionable. So this is before COVID. Women were already not doing okay. And if you look at the specific challenges that Black women, for example, face in the workplace, this slide shows it. I don't feel comfortable sharing my thoughts about racial inequity. In fact, research shows that when people of color bring up thoughts of racial inequity, they are penalized at a much higher degree than if I, as a white person, do. I feel uncomfortable sharing my experience of grief or loss. The number of my MBA students who were in the field doing internships this summer who said that Black and brown, that their managers didn't even bring up the murder of George Floyd in the days following and how that made them feel completely unseen, completely unheld. And this just shows that mothers, I'm going to talk about 3 groups. First, women of color, which I talked about a bit, and in this order on purpose. The second are mothers, working mothers, and the last are women at the highest ranks of the corporate sector. Mothers are 3 times more likely to be responsible for most of the household labor, which talks about a lot of why now when your household is where you're sitting all day and the labor of your children is what are sitting around your dining room table, sharing internet space for Zooms or gaming or all the things that are happening, why this is a disproportionate burden on working mothers. And it's not to say this is true in every family. I certainly want to honor, I have a number of couples who are friends where the man or the other partner does share a significant amount of the load, but I will say it is not the norm. And this is even more disturbing, that women are feeling more judged. And in fact, if you look at the statistics from the headlines on the first slide, they are being more judged. When a dad is sitting on a Zoom call and his child crawls up on his lap, the general reaction is, oh, isn't that so sweet? Whereas when a woman is on a Zoom call and a child comes and tugs her shoulder for something, everybody gets distracted and says, come on, I need you to focus on this call. So there is a significant amount of judging that happens. And by the way, this is by women and men. So everyone in this call, in this world, is biased. It is just how human beings are made. So I don't at all want to put this on the shoulders of white men. I am with a white man. He just left happily to escape the talk. But there's nothing positive and constructive about blaming white men. We are all to blame here. So I've talked about the disproportionate burden on women of color, particularly in light of COVID and its disproportionate burden on women of color, the significant amount of racial unrest and injustice that places a significant burden, obviously, on people of color, and the election. I won't go into that right now. Senior level women are burning out at a much higher rate than senior level men. And why this matters, you already saw that decline in the pipeline when you only have 3% African-American senior women at the C-suite, or 19% women in general, all women at the C-suite. When you're losing them there and the lower ranks can't see anybody, you can't be what you can't see, there's just a blanket effect, a ripple effect of losing women at the most senior ranks, not the least of which is that women are much more likely to practice allyship than our senior men. So if you're losing your allies, and I want to talk to you about a term that I just learned recently from a Black colleague when we did a session together. She calls it the underground railroad of your organizations. And the fact that your Black executives are running underground railroads and triaging for Black employees in your organization who are having a significantly negative experience. And they're doing this while they aren't getting the same support from above. So it's a really draining experience. And the same, to a lesser degree, happens to white women and women at top ranks. We're constantly trying to mentor, sponsor, talk women below us into staying, don't leave yet. Let's see if we can be more flexible. So there's a significant loss, not just around equity, but the impact of a broadening of equity when you lose women at the top ranks. And then finally, most of my faculty colleagues would show you the data and then come back to the gallery view and say, yep, the world's pretty rough out there. I'm somebody who's much more interested in solutions. The data is rough, but I don't think it's without solutions. And I'll just touch on a few, and then Alexa, I'm going to turn it over, or sorry, to everyone for Q&A. It is to make work more sustainable and reset norms. So the amount of senior leaders who say, I will work after hours, whatever that is, after dinner, but I will schedule my emails to not go out until first thing in the morning, because you can do that on email, because not everybody has the flexibility to work at night, and it is not all healthy for everybody to work to the same level at night. So scheduling emails, I heard, okay, it was my partner. I got very frustrated last week. He had a big client call. He is a partner at IDEO, a design firm. I got to make sure he's gone. And one of his female partner colleagues, they had a really difficult client. The client wanted to schedule a meeting for one day last week. She was on vacation, first vacation she'd taken during COVID-19, mom of 2 young kids. And he just said, hey, I'm really sorry. He did say once, don't call in, I got it. She's like, of course I want to call in. Just so you know, women are going to say, most of us are going to say, I want to call in. And they had the partner meeting. And that night we had a tough discussion around, hey, of course she's going to say she wants to call in. Don't use that as an excuse. Change the partner meeting, the corporate meeting. You could have had the client meeting next week. So it really is resetting norms. Women who are being reviewed during COVID-19 against men who are having a more productive, more promotable time, it's going to be very different. Women who have children who are going to be ranked against women who don't have children at home right now. So we have to be very careful at looking at performance reviews. And then finally, I'm just going to jump to the last in the interest of time and respecting all of your time and the rest of the agenda. It is so just incumbent on leaders to increase the amount of communication, touch points, personal check-ins, not the email, hey, how are you doing? Because you're always going to get the fine. But the, hey, Alexa, I noticed you seemed really sort of, not focused last Friday at that meeting. Call at a specific time. What can I do? Is there anything that's going on? Really just strengthening those touch points, because we aren't face-to-face. Having town halls. Chip Berg, one of my absolute favorite CEOs, CEO of Levi across the bay, he has what's called Chips and Beer. It's just an open town hall. He used to have it once a month. He has it once a week right now, because there's just such a high need to have these touch points. So there are things that we can do. I've got lots and lots of more ideas if you're interested in talking about them. And I've just been witnessing so many and advising so many senior leaders in this space, women and men, but I have to be honest, it's mostly men, who are coming to me with a really fantastic, enlightened view of, I need coaching. I'm never going to see it through the lens of a working mom right now. Please help coach me through some of these things. So this is just really saying that we're saying to our managers, you have to do all this, you have to be flexible, you have to support, but we're not giving them guidelines on how best to support. They need their own mental health check-ins. A last solution that I just use with my team is I've been watching these companies wonderfully giving their employees election day as a day off. Cal has not done that. It is completely within my purview to tell my team, take election day off. And I just said, and if you could do one sort of random act of kindness, whether it's paying for somebody's coffee in front of you, that's my whole thing. I want you to take the day off, vote, of course, but they've all already voted, and just do one random act of kindness. Use what little amount of flexibility. They couldn't have been more excited about that. So I'm glad we are facing all kinds of social injustices. I had just taken my eye off the ball on gender for the past several months and really needed to get back into talking about how women are not doing well. The last end I'll stop sharing to the story is the colleague who I showed you at the beginning who had the odd times in which she sandwiched me in. It is because her day is sandwiched back to back and she has a newborn child. And she told me, my kids are in college, so it's been a while since I had this, that she had the 2-minute lead time at the beginning to get a granola bar in so that she could then give nourishment to her child and nurse during our call, and then a tiny chunk of in that half hour at the end of the meeting so she could go deal with the dirty diaper that is the inevitable result of a nursing session. And I just had no idea how sustainable that's going to be. So thank you, Alexa, for inviting me and for appearing to listen, and I'm open to questions or whatever you think the agenda can withhold.
Thank you so much, Professor McElhaney. Do we have any, if anyone has any questions for Professor McElhaney, you can put your hand up in the queue, or we can take some time and go through the rest of the agenda, and we'll take more time for questions at the end. So does anybody have any questions now or comments? All right, seeing none. Thank you again so much. And we're going to move on to the facilitated discussion portion of the meeting. So hopefully we're hoping to hear from many of you. So I'm going to hand it over to Micah Weinberg, our facilitator, one of our co-facilitators. So Micah, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Alexa. Well, what was true of the Oakland Economic Recovery Advisory Council is true of 2020 generally. It's not what we had expected that it was going to be, and it ain't over yet. We had been thinking that we would get through this. I can remember foolishly thinking, my birthday is April 4th. Well, we'll be turning a corner by April 4th, right? This isn't going to last more than a few weeks. And it did, and it's going to go on. And so we're wrapping up this particular process through the city at this point. But we're not even in some ways to the economic recovery, and we may see a significant uptick in COVID cases. So what I really wanted to do over the course of the next, 40 minutes or so, is basically hear from as many people as possible on how does this work continue, this work we've been talking about in terms of building an equitable economy, and how can we help each other going forward? And then I know we're doing that in a lot of forums, but I wanted to make sure to create some space for that here. And I'm going to start with some of the leaders of this work and the leaders of our different working groups. And I hope folks don't mind if I call on them a little bit. And then if folks want to chime in on the conversation, please put your names in the chat and I'll get you into the queue. Let's just make sure that we understand how we can all help each other going forward and what's going to be coming out of this work during this time. So actually, Ari, do you mind if I have you jump in first?
Sure, I'll be the brave first guinea pig.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think so in terms of what we're doing in terms of continuing this work is we are, as OIA, we are still building parklets for small businesses. We have actually our first 3 up with 2 more in construction. And we're also potentially working on a couple new holiday campaigns. So just trying to do as much as we can in terms of wraparound support for small businesses, whatever we can do collectively to work together.
Great. How about you, Barb?
Yeah, thank you. And Kelly, thank you for that presentation. Slightly unnerving, but very important to hear. I appreciate it. And
Thanks.
certainly helps define how I've been feeling probably the last few weeks. So thank you, I really do. I think the Chamber has obviously done a lot around outreach to our members as well as sort of the greater Oakland community right from the get-go. Lots of technical assistance, lots of programmatic information, just to keep people abreast of the situation. that was sort of, you know, unfolding, particularly in the beginning of the crisis, and then as we continued on. Also, I thank you, Alexa, for the shout out on the posters. That was a really important effort. We tried really hard. That was at the time when there was not a lot of information from the county as to really how we should navigate it. And they were reluctant to actually tell us exactly what we had to do. So we really had to sort of guess and work as well as we could together to get as much on the poster that would be helpful, so people didn't have to sort of replicate it moving forward. And I too see them all around town. It's just kind of fun to see. I appreciate, and we obviously, that was a partnership with all of our bid districts and all of our chamber partners, many of whom are on the call right now. And then we talked about this a little bit on Friday in our call, and I think it's worth sharing. One of, you know, we've continually worked with our chamber peers, you know, prior to COVID, and they're really an important part of our sort of business ecosystem. Some are on the call, I can see today, as well as you know, our bid partners as well. And we've just deepened that partnership over this experience, and I think the work that we're doing is even stronger collectively. We just submitted a grant to expand the Chamber's Technical Assistance Program that we had started early in the program, mostly around PPP, because that was sort of the most urgent need initially. And then obviously now we really are expanding it to all aspects of small business and business sort of needs, whether that be legal work, whether it be continued financial support, marketing, business plans, you know, pivoting conversations around the work. And I want to thank everybody on the call. I know Savlon's here. I think I saw Shonda here. Certainly, I think I saw Jessica here. What was really great is through all this deep work, when we asked our partners to support the grant, within 25 minutes, we had everybody's buy-in and everybody's support. And I think that's an example of just how much folks want to collaborate on this work to make sure that we are supporting the businesses that are actually at the most risk across our city. And I just am appreciative of, you know, nobody likes an extra Zoom meeting every week, but I really am appreciative of Mayor Schaaf, you bringing us together, Alexa, certainly your staff work, and everybody else, Marissa, and everybody else who's been leading this effort on the staff side, and then obviously Micah and Jose for leading the effort as well. So I just think we're going to do better work going forward, and more collective action work, which I think is really important.
Great, thanks, Barb. And Darcel, we got a little teaser from Alexa on your work, but tell us a little bit more about the work you're going to be doing going forward and how we can help.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. We've spent the last few months, observing and listening and gathering data specific to how COVID-19 and the recent turmoil in the community has affected our most vulnerable small businesses in Oakland. And what we really wanted to understand is how we can position these most vulnerable businesses, not only to survive, but thrive after the crisis, if we get through the crisis. We recognize that this means not just pulling these businesses through the current situation, but really dealing head on with the underlying systemic and institutional inequities, disinvestment, displacement that these businesses are facing every day. And so what we certainly confirmed is that we need to find a way to address the historical obstacles that these businesses are facing in accessing capital, accessing the market, accessing education. But for the most disenfranchised businesses, we also need to take a very hard look at how we can reduce the often disruptive and destructive competition that these businesses feel that they have to engage in because of this constant sense of scarcity of resources and opportunities, and how we can build long-term market and community support and engagement for these businesses. So one of the things that really informed our thought process is taking a look at the grassroots way that Oakland has and continues to be coming together during this multidimensional crisis to support these most vulnerable local businesses. And that led us to realize that the solution approach that we want to look at very closely is a cooperative-based model. So, you know, rather than just a group of producers, for example, coming together, or a single worker-owned co-op structure that we're most accustomed to thinking about, we're talking instead about creating a multi-stakeholder cooperative along the entire value chain of an industry to bring all of the connected businesses together very purposefully in collaboration together. So, for example, in the food industry, we would bring together the supply chain growers, the ingredients producers, together with the food and beverage manufacturers, together with the restaurants and the grocers, together with the consumers and the community, all the way along the value chain. So this really gives us an opportunity for not only economies of scale, but also economies of scope. And very importantly, it also brings very intentional, very committed collaboration all the way through that value chain. And it also addresses one of the critical issues that we often find in value chain relationships that can really decimate small businesses, and that's the abuse of power that we see occurring throughout the value chain. So what we want to really do is intentionally focus on bringing in local, socially conscious businesses for every point along the value chain, and then hiring from within the community, selling within the community, so that we can really cement engagement and investment from the community for the benefit of, you know, the entirety of these collaborating local businesses. That's what we really see as a way forward, not only again to simply get through the current situation, but to find a way in community to thrive beyond it. And that's what we're looking at right now.
Great. Thanks, Darcel. Actually, Marissa, do you mind if I, ask you for a few thoughts as one of our fearless leaders on, some of the things you've been the most excited about that we've been working on, and how you see this work going forward?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Micah. Hello, everyone. It's great to see you. I think the couple of things that were most important to me that I was pursuing before going on medical leave last month was just related to, I think, Kelly's presentation and an investigation into childcare and learning support options for Oakland families and workers, because part of why many women were not coming back to work was due to their need to support children in school. And I think that Julina's work group had a really great and inspiring conversation about that. And so I was sort of digging in with OUSD and unpacking and gathering some data on just the available options if you live in the Oakland area and neighboring cities, working with Bananas to understand how many vacancies were available at private childcare versus Oakland Parks and Rec sponsored full day and afternoon options, and just kind of trying to better understand where OUSD has been at in terms of their resources for sponsoring learning hubs for targeted Oakland Unified students. The other piece, it was great to see the work that Mieko, Jean-Marie, and their group had done with the county on better understanding the logistics of keeping artists healthy and safe during performances. And I was excited about some of the work we were doing to shape up opening up outdoor markets, especially as the holidays approach and people want to gather or want to shop locally at outdoor markets, how to do that safely and have the engagement of artists and musicians there. And so we were working on kind of a guideline for those types of activities. And then finally, Deborah and others had been really, I think, persuasive on the need for additional youth engagement. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to do that as we, as a city, enter into our recovery strategy, hearing from Oakland youth on where they're at right now and how they would maybe see a future for themselves coming out of the recession and some of the challenges that they are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Looking forward to organizing.
Great. Well, thank you for all of your tireless work, helping keep us on track. Thank you especially for the work on childcare, which has just bubbled to the top in so many of our different conversations because it's difficult to do any of that. Michael, do you mind if I, bring you into this conversation here?
Sure. Good to see everybody.
Good to see you.
Professor, thank you for your remarks. Big part of one of the ways we help our recovery is make sure that our institutions are doing some of the things that you said. And so it's been wonderful to watch as we've tried to figure out how to provide childcare support and tutoring support for staff. To your point of also just getting rid of our performance evaluation process this year, give people a chance to. So we're really just not going to do it. Just not, but still staying committed to the work, and people are doing an amazing job. And so trying to figure out how to keep our own recovery going by making sure the folks that are in the policy link house are taken care of. And it's been an exciting journey to figure that out, and with all the complexities of HR laws, you're trying to do it, but it can be done. And so, thank you for being one of those forces that has expanded my aperture about how do I see everybody's humanity. So that speaks to some things. I mean, one of them is, even like with some of our vendors who we don't use, continuing to pay them right now in this moment where we can. Those of us who have some of those privileges continue to do those types of things so that we can hold folks down as we get through this. But then there are other things that are going on in Oakland that I think are quite powerful. So when I think about the rest of our work going forward, I get really excited about figuring out how do we lift it up into a national conversation and hopefully national policy. Like one would be the guaranteed income work, that the pilots that are going on here, Mayor, that you're leading, and others that are around the country. I mean, that is a real live effort that could shift national policy, especially if we think about next rounds of stimulus dollars, et cetera, that we're trying to fight for right now, to think about what that would look like for policy. But then others are things that people may think are idealistic and impractical, but they're fundamentally street smart. And that is forgiving the debt that folks will not be able to repay, and figuring out what's a smart way to be able to do that so that the numbers can line up, being able to make sure that people can have some type of forbearance or some adjustments to their credit scoring in this period where they're going to take devastating hits for no fault of their own. So a lot of the work that we're thinking about right now to extend the work of this recovery comes out of thinking about what do everyday folks need for us to fight for on their behalf. Some of it is income. Some of it is policies to make the rules of the game fairer for them. And then others are for us to really reimagine an entirely new federal infrastructure that prioritizes families over so many of the other things that are prioritized where the money never really gets down to the street. And so those are some of the things that I'm taking out of learning from you all and trying to reset our portfolio to think about the next generation of the work that would ultimately lead to an equitable recovery here in Oakland.
Great. Thanks, Michael. I'm looking forward to following up with you. We've got a conversation coming up about, how to work together on some of those policy changes in outside of Oakland and the rest of the state. Oakland is a model for the rest of the nation. And so I'm really looking forward to that. But Professor Lahr and Michael, I like the recommendation about canceling performance reviews for this year. And so if I could get the two of you, I'm going to set up a call with my board. If we could just, get this, get that implemented for my job, I'd be cool with that. But thanks. Well, Dr. Tran, let us know a little bit more about what you're working on and how we can help you going forward.
Thank you so much. This is, I believe, the 4th month that we've been meeting. And I think that we've been through a lot together as partners, but we've been able to achieve so much because the city has been able to hold the space. And particularly for us right now, we have really expanded the responsibilities of the business leadership right now. And so we've been able to work with other partners, community partners, to provide for families in need during this time. and work with some of our partners here on this call right now to think about a East Oakland Flats Alliance, working with different partners, as well as use these funds for the CARES Fund, not only to provide immediate needs for our community members that have been underserved even prior to this pandemic, but really plan for the future, thinking about how can we strategically use these funds and our partnerships to build the Oakland that has always been there, but has the glue. We haven't had the glue to really move us in the direction that we knew was always possible. So we've been able to align, the BRT community engagement with the CARES Fund grants, as well as working with partners like Good Eats to think, where are the pain points that many of our communities, whether you're immigrant or Black and Brown or women owned, so that we can really not only move together, but advocate for one another. So that's been really exciting. And I think moving forward, what would be helpful is for us right now, like we have our 3-month plan, right, for how we're using this funding, but our last month is really thinking about, some of the discussions in terms of the potential of the economy. What potential businesses can we support in terms of starting like entrepreneurship, instead as we think about saving businesses at the same time. And these are questions we've had prior to the pandemic, right? With rent being so high, people can't afford to live here, work here, play here. But those are questions that we are discussing and saving for December. And I hope that we can continue thinking about, like, what are that? Is that going to be around digital entertainment? Is that like, what kind of economies, have actually thrived during this time and is not based in Oakland, right? And how can we use that to continue building and strengthening our communities? But thank you so much for every single person here who has been holding us accountable to just everything we propose, but also envision as we move forward.
Great. All right. Lynn, how are you seeing this work being carried forward, and how can we help you on anything that you're working on in this area?
I've been amazed by some of the suggestions that have come up. And I think that how to help, I think the best way to help me is to let me know how I can continue the work moving forward. I think that none of us could have anticipated exactly where we would wind up. And, to your point, Micah, if we had said, so what's it going to look like end of October when we got started, I don't think any of us would have come anywhere near where we are. Part of that is, I think, some of the extraordinary ideas of the groups have come up with have been really, really impressive. I'm very interested in some of the work that Jose had been doing around the restaurants. I think that really struck me on getting, healthy food to the community, because that's one of the most basic things that you don't survive very long without that. But some of the other ideas also about helping small businesses, about providing them with information that it's much easier. I work for a larger company. We have access to information. Some of the smaller businesses that don't have the same access, even to just the information on how to keep themselves safe and what to do if an employee tests positive, what to do if they find out that some of their customers or contacts have their regular clientele has tested positive. I think those are some of the things that are really top of mind for me.
Great. Thanks, Lynn. Well, Stephen, I get your emails, so I know you're busy doing a lot of this different work, but just wanted to see what your take was on the work that you're doing that we can be the most helpful on as you carry it forward.
Sure. Thanks, Micah. It's been really enjoyed working with all of you and with our subgroup that's been looking at these issues at a bunch of different levels. And a number of you have been participating on calls we've been having really since the onset of the pandemic about how to connect resources on the ground, both here in Oakland and beyond. As we know that, there's so many inextricable connections, between Oakland and the region, and really in the way in which this pandemic has unfolded, and all the things that this group has been focusing on. We're really trying to make, and we invite all of you to participate, and continue to participate in those efforts. We've been trying to populate our website with a few more resources. We keep our COVID-19 resource list literally updated every day. So I encourage folks to tap into that. We're trying to keep things very, very current so people know what things are out there in real time. We're also doing some specific things, as much as we also know how much the pandemic has impacted people across race and equity lines. There's also been, by extension or by correlation, a lot of also uneven impacts across different industry sectors. And so we're obviously looking at that too, and looking at where we can try to shore up support. So I'm happy to, really appreciate the invitation to have been a part of this group, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you, and invite you to reach out for things we might be able to do directly to further that.
Great. Thanks, Savlin. How are you seeing this work moving forward, and how can we help?
Yeah, so it's been a really informative and fun. I mean, despite the really sort of treacherous circumstances that we're all in, to be on this sort of periodic check-in with you all. And so it's a couple of things. It's just, so kudos to Mayor Schaaf and the staff of the Economic Development Department that are leading this effort, and all the folks that have just been so generous with their time and brain power. It's a reminder of how much amazing sort of generosity and resources there are in our network now, and I'd love to see that continue. I'd love to see that decisions that this is really a cross-sector group. Decisions that come before our elected representatives could check in sort of with a group like this, maybe us, going forward. I think that has been maybe something that has been missing in the past. And it's just a reminder about how many overlapping efforts there are that can really harness each other, that so many people touched on who spoke before me. So it's been just a great sort of addition to my toolkit and my work. And I should have mentioned I'm the executive director of the Jacqueline and Improvement District, and I also chair the BID Alliance, which represents all of the BID commercial districts in the city of Oakland. So it's a two-way street, and it also makes me step up more and really check in with the folks that I represent in order to be able to be a better conduit for this group.
Great, thanks. Jessica, how can we help you going forward?
Yes, thank you to have this chance to speak to everybody. And last 10 months, not 10 months, almost 8 months, we've been working together so closely. And I think this is really great collaborative with the every different chambers and business improvement district, and all the partners that care about our small business in Oakland, and also of course the merchants in Chinatown. And this year is really difficult for us. We've been through not just a COVID pandemic, but also the routings and then the fires. And we also try to upgrade our way, because we have a lot of merchants, they're still doing very traditional business model. So it's very interesting and very difficult, when we try to help them with nowadays, all the meetings are online, and all the information are shared digitally, and sometimes it's really hard to reach, because even our community leaders, they barely come out, but in Chinatown, it's all really about face-to-face, in-personal communication and information exchange. So now this time, it's really difficult for us, but we are working really hard, trying to collect all the information, how we can connect with them, and then, at the same time, provide the bilingual service to them, because even though last week, I still have one merchants coming and tell me, like, can you check, do I get past the grant application? I said, did you receive email? And he was like, oh, is this, what does it say? I said, is it complete? I feel so bad, like they have to come in and ask me all these questions, and I like, I also try to, educate them. So we just, and also if you all know, in Chinatown we have so many projects coming up. We have all the OAP project. We need to work with the Alameda County Transportation Commission, and we have Lincoln, our recreation center, that are looking for a capital program to rebuild a facility for more seniors and then children when they can come back to use. And of course, we are pushing through our BID, our formation study now. So everything is all ongoing, and a lot of time, I just want to say this is a very amazing chance I can work with everybody, but everybody all face all different challenge and then different difficulties. And I'm glad that we can have all this meeting and keep touch and each other. And sometimes we just share meeting some information after the meetings, because now we all connect together. I really appreciate this chance, and for the future, how we can all work together, especially for Chinatown, just give me a little bit time, and then but also still continue to give me all the information, and then, or even your idea how you can chip in, like Berkeley students. We have different working models, and when they help other communities business, but then when they come to Chinatown, we will have a different set. So a lot of time, we just need time to think how this service can all turn around in Chinatown, but it doesn't mean like it's not gonna work, or it's just sometimes we need to find other way to turn around. So if, for the future, I still really appreciate, but, let's work things out. And then, I'm always open here and we can talk. And I want to make sure, all the merchants we are all receive the same information, and we all have the chance to apply for a grant or, being better. And that's what I really, looking forward to work with everybody, is like we have more conversation.
Great. All right. Other folks that would like to get into the conversation? Okay, well then I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Jose Corona to provide some closing thoughts and bring us home, just with the reminder that, this particular long named Oakland Economic Recovery Advisory Council group is wrapping up, but we see each other in so many other contexts, of course, now just on Zoom. And through so many other networks. And so it's been a real honor and a real pleasure to get to know many of you better, to work very closely with some of the rest of you. And I hope to continue to do that through the years to come. And I hope that some of these years to come are a little bit more mellow than this year. So thanks to everybody. And I will now turn it over to Jose.
Thank you so much, Micah. And thank you, everybody. I won't take 15 minutes. I actually did want to take some time to leave at the end, just for others to offer their own closing thoughts. I don't know how I drew this stick. I thought, Michael is always the person that I look to provide closing remarks. And I love his eloquence and just his steady voice. So Michael, I hope I can make you proud if you're still on the call. But I first of all just wanted to say thank you to Mayor Schaaf. I think that the work that you've done to get everybody on this call to still, after 4 months, 5 months, still show up for a Zoom call is a feat in and of itself. So thank you for giving us that space, and also for your opening remarks. I swear to everyone that we did not talk beforehand, but my comments were very resonant to what she said, which is just a deep amount of gratitude to each and every one of you for on top of everything that you do, to do this on top of that is heroic. And just the resilience that I've seen in this community over these past 5 months, actually it's been 31 weeks. I mean, I've been counting every week. So 31 weeks of this since we started on March 13th, when they announced that there was a shelter in place and the schools were going to be closed, when it all began, at least that's when I started counting. It's a hard time. So I don't want to minimize, that we have been going through some hard times. There are people that are really hurting. Communities are hurting more than others. And the thing that I've really seen over these past 31 weeks and through this process of the Recovery Council is just, in one word, it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful to see the community stepping up for each other. It's been beautiful to see business owners standing alongside others and behind others and in front of others. People are learning when to lead, when to follow, when to get out of the way. But more importantly, I really have seen Oakland show up for Oakland. And Oakland has really shown up in a way that, they want to maintain the community that they have. And all this work is really based on this relationships. And I've really seen over these past 31 weeks, just how stronger our relationships have gone. I mean, I've known most of you from before this council, and I can say that I just feel like I just feel so humbled that I was able to share space with you and just strengthen my relationship, personal and professional, with each and every one of you. I've seen just acts of amazing, just humility and authenticity in our community, where restaurants have stepped up to include their own community. We didn't talk much about this work that we did with Wall Central Kitchen and feeding the community, as Lynn alluded to, but just in those stories and being with restaurant owners and community members along the way, this bond that was created with a restaurant owner understanding themselves, as the mayor calls it, as a culture keeper in the community, that they actually are part of the community. And instead of just serving customers, they actually serve the community. They want to continue doing this, irregardless of the funding that's out there. They've always been public servants, and they've always been about the community. As a restaurant owner, you know that. You've always been in service of a community. But just the fact that this work really reawakened their purpose of who they are and what kind of asset they are in the community. It's not just for those that can come in and pay for a meal, but they said, how can I continue? We gave them notice that we were going to continue to support these restaurants and the meal recipients through the end of December. And for most of them, I would say 100% of them said, thank you so much for what you've done so far. And we want to continue doing it. And if you can support us, great, but we're going to find ways to continue supporting the unsheltered, the seniors, our elders, our immigrant community, our foster youth homes, our parents that are seeing sick children at UCSF Children's Benioff Hospital, all the 145 different organizations that we've been working with. These restaurants have said, how do we continue serving them? So that has been beautiful for me to say. So it's just been an enormous, just sense of humility that I've felt over these past 31 weeks. I am looking forward to the work that Darcel and I are going to be doing with these 130 restaurants. I'm looking forward to the work that Ari and I are talking about. How do we continue this work? So as the mayor knows, I value relationships. And even though this Economic Recovery Council is coming to an end, we all know we're all going to continue working with each other, because we all know that we built those relationships. As Barb said, she's working with the ethnic chambers. She's working with the broader community. Each of you that spoke is already thinking about how to continue this work. So I don't think this ends here. I just think it's actually when the work really begins. We did a lot of great work. The mayor and the team and Marissa and everybody behind the scenes, you all did amazing work. And you should feel proud of what we accomplished in these 31 weeks and in this council. And is that enough? No, of course not. We all know that. But it really is the work that follows That's what really matters. Can we sustain this work? Can we sustain these relationships over the long term? I believe that we can, and I believe that we must. And I think you all, knowing who you are, or I mean, I know you, you're going to continue doing this because you know that, you know, this is not about the title. This is not about being a member of the long name that we all created for this council. But you all really are in it because you want to see the future of Oakland and the future of our community really thrive. So I really want to thank you for that. And this just, you know, brings me to just my closing and to kind of think about another Oaklander that you all may know, Octavia Butler, and some of the writing that she does, and a lot of the characters that are really based on being and expressing a lot of challenges. So a lot of her characters express an immense amount of challenges in their stories. And in one of their books, The Parable of the Sower, if any of you know it, and if you don't, you should look it up. She actually predicts about everything that's happening in 2020. She doesn't talk about COVID, but she talks about a pandemic. She talks about challenges that are happening in our world. But she always talks about that even though that all her characters face immense challenge, she's always talking about that the theme of her story there is that humanity must change in order to adapt to society's changes, both negative or positive. So just rereading that story really reminded of kind of the resilience, as the mayor said at the beginning, of who we are as a community. So in just closing, I just wanted to leave you with a quote from The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler that states, "Prodigy is, at its essence, adaptability and persistent positive obsession. Without persistence, what remains is an enthusiasm of the moment. Without adaptability, what remains may be channeled into destructive fanaticism. Without positive obsession, there is nothing at all. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change." And then she ends, "For all you non-religious people," she adds, "God is change." So if you can allow me to say that, that's how she ends the quote. So from my point of view, things are going to continue changing. Oakland is going to continue changing for the positive, for the negative, but we all must adapt to it. But I think it really takes each and all of us coming together. If we want to make it to change for the positive, it has to take all of us to actually make and do our part. So with that, I just want to say humbly, my humble thanks. I know that I will see you sometime in the near future. I'm a hugger, so I miss hugging you. If we were there in person, I would do a circle, we would do a hugging circle, but we can't do that. So I am sending you a virtual hug. I love each and every one of you, and there's more to come. Back to you, Alexa.
Wow, thank you so much, Jose, and Micah, and just all of you, you know, just echoing what everyone said. It's so great to hear from all of you, and just humble thanks to all of you for getting us to this point and for all of your contributions, and just, you know, helping us at the city, showing up every day and trying to do our jobs. Just thank you for helping us be better and for giving us, you know, all this support and this input. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with all of you. So also very sincere thanks to all of our coordinating committee members, our convening members, Micah and Jose and Michael McAfee. Thank you so much for your leadership, Barb and Darcel and Jeff from the Bay Area Council Economic Institute, who's not here today. But just thank you to all of you, to our working group leads, Ari and Julina and Mieko. Marissa, am I forgetting anyone? I feel like I'm forgetting someone.
Brandon.
Anyone I'm forgetting, I'm sorry. Thank you to you too. we are so appreciative of all your work and your support. So thank you. And as Jose said, I'm sure we're all going to see all of you again very soon. And continuing this important work. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, Marissa, I didn't thank Marissa. Thank you, Marissa.
I was going to say you didn't miss anybody.
Marissa, everyone has just worked so hard and so tirelessly, you know, pulling that report together, and Brandon Walensky and David Lay on the city staff side. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Alexa.
Everyone.
Thanks, Alexa. Thanks, everybody.
Alexa. Thank you, Marissa.
Everybody.
Jessica. Bye-bye.